Yo guys, what is up? Welcome to Matt Hopper's retro vintage game room thing. Nah, that's not going to work. Nah, this isn't a retro vintage game room, although I am working on a big mural of a J.R. Tolkien Mirkwood type thing. Yeah, the reason for this video is I wanted to show you this Spectrum CD 1996, 3000 plus classic Spectrum games and 201 Windows games, 75 Workbench games, lottery predictors and more. How cool is that? Let me put it in the CD drive, DVD drive nowadays, isn't it? I've even got the invoice from the original purchase, £18.99, including postage and VAT. Quite a lot, really, for a little CD full of a few Spectrum games. Purchased 12th of February 1996. That's a long time ago. So I was kind of thinking, I got my ZX Spectrum in 1983, and it was only really like 13 years later when I got the Spectrum CD, which is nothing. I mean, in 1996 the Spectrum had only been defunct commercially for a very short time, just 3 or 4 years really, since the last commercial game was released. But at the time, in 96, the Spectrum era seemed ancient, it seemed right back in the distant past. But yeah, I was just looking at this DVD CD and thinking, well, it wasn't really, was it? It was quite a recent thing, but I suppose I was in my 20s then, so looking back to my early teens with the Spectrum, it seemed like a long time ago. It's also crazy to think I didn't have a computer until I was like 13, really. That's unthinkable nowadays. Different world, man. So yeah, this is the root of the DVD. Just got like a Word document here. I think that's for the Z80 emulator. It's quite an early emulator for the ZX Spectrum. Everything's taking ages to load. Yeah, this will just be the documentation. December 1994, that's there. Wow, seems like 30 years ago now. It's a different world. But when I got this CD, it just blew my mind. Just like thousands of Spectrum games and just on one disc. I was just imagining how I'd have felt when I was a 13-year-old if I'd have had this then. Just beyond comprehension. So we've got loads of bits and bobs. Disclaimer for the CD. And then we've got various directories. We've got lots of Windows games, early Windows games. I didn't bother with any of these, they were probably crap, but it might be fun to go through them. We had lots of Workbench games. Just the usual shareware crap, really. Yeah, it's funny, I get nostalgic looking at things from the mid-90s now, but in my mind it just seems like yesterday, really. Time flies and airplanes crash. Yeah, just there's a lot of crap on this that doesn't interest me now, but it might interest some other people. We even had some Commodore 64 disc images, I think. Yeah, I didn't really use those. I wasn't too bothered about the Commodore 64 at that time because it didn't hold much nostalgic value for me. I never had a Commodore 64 back in the day. Well, that's not true. I got one for a few months in '86, but I didn't use it much. I had loads of problems with it, and I ended up taking it back and back to Boots and changing it for a Hitachi 3D Superwoofer, which was a kind of a cool ghetto blaster at the time. So I could do all my breakdancing on the lino in my bedroom. Got some programs here. Sort of emulation software for ZX81, different machines. Yeah, I don't know what a lot of this stuff is. I didn't really use it. Atari. Yeah, I always wanted an Atari back in the day. I remember my friend had one in about 1980, and I remember playing Space Invaders on it. Just, wow, at that time, that was just an amazing thing. I was a real arcade fanatic, and just able to play a decent replica of Space Invaders in your home was just amazing at that time. But things are very different now. Yeah, at this time in 1996, I was really into my PC, which I'd just got. It was a 486 DX2 66 with 8 megabytes of RAM and a 400 megabyte hard drive, which was pretty respectable at the time. I could play Doom really nicely, things like that. Doom and Duke Nukem, things like that really blew me away. Just being able to navigate through 3D worlds was something else at the time. It's something I'd always dreamed of. I remember talking to my friends in the days of Spectrum at school, just imagining how cool it'd be if you could. There was games like this Alien 8 that were kind of forced 3D isometric, and we used to talk about how amazing it would be if we could just walk around these worlds and view them from any angle and explore the nooks and crannies, kind of. And then it came, and for a while I was really impressed, but at that time in the mid to late 90s was when I started to lose interest in gaming, because when my dreams were realised and when I had these 3D worlds to blow the shit out of and explore, some of the magic had gone somehow. I mean, in some ways they were creating 3D worlds before the technology was quite there, but yeah, I lost interest, and I started going back into the past to pixel games, and I got emulators for the Nintendo Nintendo Entertainment System, and I started finding all the Japanese RPGs on that I'd never had the chance to play back in the day. Things like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. I played those a lot. again, it was seemed like a really cool novelty to be able to play all these old consoles on my PC under emulation. Yeah, and I felt like I was discovering all the old 2D games, the top-down 2D games had more of a kind of an enchantment for me than the 3D games that were coming out, and I'm not quite sure why. It was just partly nostalgia, but they had a lot of more charm than the games like Doom for me. After the initial wow factor, they somehow had more depth. Yeah. Lottery. I don't know why they put these on here. Must have been a thing at the time. Trying to predict which were the winning numbers. Crazy. And then we have the actual games. The reason why I bought the CD. Yeah, you can see they were mostly snapshots, but there's also a Z80 and .tap files as well. But it was really cool thing to have these at that time. And you can see the naming conventions. They're all, at that time you had to, the names of the files had to have only not above 8 characters in them. So people were using really esoteric ways of naming these long games and on the files, and you weren't always sure what you were going to play. Yeah, it was just awesome to be able to play all these games there. A lot of them I hadn't played back in the day, so it was good just to go through the CD and just play them and wallow in that 80s nostalgia. It really brought back those heady early 80s days when I was a kid and things were exciting. Games were exciting. Yeah, you couldn't really, in the mid-90s when I got this CD, you couldn't really use the internet to download these things. Well, you could, but I had a 56k modem, and it was a very laborious process to, if I had to download like a 100 megabyte file, it could potentially take days. Plus I didn't actually have a drinking a cup of tea. I didn't actually have an internet account at that time. I used to get free trials on the covers of magazines just for a month. I'd use the internet sparingly because of the connection fees on the phone charges. Yeah. I mostly used bulletin board systems at the time. There was a really good local Amiga BBS called MetNet, run by was it John Whitty, and he had a ISDN connection to the internet, and he used to share it on the BBS, and you could browse the web with this crappy little ASCII browser and download files, I think, and that was pretty cool. But it didn't last long. I'm not sure what happened, but yeah. Manuals, yeah. Ah, great, it's crashed. That's pretty much it really anyway. Not sure why I bothered to make this video really. This is why I don't make podcasts, because I tend to... They always usually end up becoming boring as I waffle along. Got a bit of a bunged up nose as well, so apologies. Yeah. There we go. Just wanted to capture a bit of that exciting time in the mid-90s when we were getting all these emulators and CDs full of the games of our childhood. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that when I got this CD, the Spectrum had been defunct for a couple of years, and now looking at this CD, it's like almost 30 years old. It's that's a lot further than the Spectrum was at the time. So this retro CD has a kind of retro value in itself, which is kind of a postmodern concept or something. Yeah. Oh well. I guess I should wrap it up. So there we are, the Spectrum 1996. Yeah, that'll do, I guess. Logging off.